Good morning. We begin our second day of Donbas Media Forum for the 7th year in the row. This event is taking place, and every year we are talking about the relevant topics. My name is Alexei Matsuka. It's my honor to hold the panel discussion that is called How the Media Landscape of Eastern Ukraine Has Changed in Recent Years. And here with me in the studio, Andriy Romanenko, editor-in-chief of 0629 Mariupol present, Olena Leptuga, editor-in-chief of Nakipilo Media Group Kharkiv, Oleksandra Yarlykova, senior editor of Vostochnyi variant site, Kramatorsk, right? Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast. And Andriy Romanenko, journalist and coordinator of the Center for Public Control ACT-Kramatorsk, and my colleague Tetiana Tiurina, Channel 5 I always want to say, but no, head of the Department of Information Activities and Public Communication of the Donetsk Regional State Administration, Kramatorsk. Thank you, colleagues, for having gathered here today on Saturday's morning. It shows that you are very motivated and interested in the subject matter. Clearly, the topic is difficult. We have 1 hour, an hour and 30 minutes maybe, and there is a lot to discuss during this time. And during this panel discussion, and all the experience of what has been happening in the East, we are going to focus on as of 2015 when the DMF started its activity. We have experienced participants to the forum. There are new ones. Greetings to those. Now you're also with us in one crowd. And our group here is very representative on the analysis of the situation in the East as for the media landscape. Here we have the journalists, editors, media activists, in some sense. There are the representatives of the state bodies who communicate with journalists every day. It means that more or less, I hope, for our audience, we shall make not, this surface analysis of what is happening in our domain, but a deep analysis. Even if it's not very interesting to the thousands of the viewers, but it might be very interesting for tens or up to 100 of those who really develops or supports media in the east of Ukraine. So I suggest we start with the reply to the question, because we are no political players here to make statements near the microphones, just like in some famous talk shows like on Friday. But we are to start a discussion. So in your opinion, the main question, how the media landscape, or it's not only a television or printed press, but what is media landscape today in our two oblasts of Donetsk and Luhansk, Kharkiv perhaps too, and maybe even the occupied territories of Crimea, for those who know, or near the Kherson Oblast. So those regions where there is a main signal of Russian federal media being popular in all this category. Let's start with Anna. I shall speak about the Donetsk Oblast because, yes, of course, it's the common topic is East. Yes, so from the positive I shall start, because it seems to me that first and most important positive thing is that we have managed to deal with the crisis of the previous year, of this past year, and we are doing it successfully this year too, because the lockdown and corona crisis of 2020, it has hurt all the independent media a lot. Why independent? Because we have no financial support from oligarchs or political projects, and I'm not speaking about the media where I work, but all independent media. Especially us and other outlets were supported by the Polish Fund of Solidarity, because 90% of advertisers for 3 or 4 months, they just left us at all. And it was a powerful financial, blast. And I know the same situation was in many other media outlets. So the fact that we are alive and that we continue growing our potential and develop, that is a positive sign. Another thing I want to add among positive things, for the past 4 to 5 years, new media appeared that you could say decorate our media landscape a lot. It's the free radio, Vilna Radio. I'm following and I like everything they do. And Eastern variant that disappeared for a while, and you can say that it's a new media with a new breath. This is wonderful. They're doing very good quality content and we're following it, and we are trying to support them in social media and take some materials and place on our website. I think it's a very important support of independent media of each other. And now about something that is negative or bad trends that we are tracing. And first of all, that's a widespread influence of the social media, and I think it's a negative trend because information that is spread there, it is almost always not verified or not true, but we have no possibility to compete on the questions of the speed with the social media or in the influence involvement of the audience. And I can tell you also in the part of trust, because of this we are losing trust of part of our audience, and I think this is a big problem. And of course the problem of the human resources, and my colleagues will add on this too and mention this too. Maybe my comments will comment a bit more. Okay, thank you. So we have 1 hour for our work. We have 10:08, and at 11 we are to finish. Then let's do it in turn, in whichever order you want. Who's ready? Andriy or Tetiana? So I'm greeting all of you one more time. I'm glad to be here and to represent the Eastern variant. Yes, we have started 2 years ago. So it was the times of coronavirus, of pandemic, lockdown. So the Eastern variant exists for 10 years. But our team, headed by the editor-in-chief Andriy Romanenko, we have joined 2 years ago. Why? In 2014, the Eastern variant stopped its activity. There was no financing, there was no opportunities. And up to 2 years ago, Donetsk Kazansky decided to give a second life to the Eastern variant. But they needed managers, they needed a strong team to help develop. And so here we are, we came along. We had experience, and Anastasia has also introduced the new chapter, and we have faced all of these negative aspects like coronavirus and so on, but we are an independent media because we're supported by international organizations. For these 2 years we managed to implement 5 projects, and we continue implementing big projects, and this is a plus or an advantage. We don't have some guy who's going to come and tell us, I don't like that you're writing about environment, or no, friends, you're not going to write about this. You should say only pause something else. No, we are to raise some acute topics, and we are to talk about things that the residents of Donbass are bothered by. Even if there is, a problem with the pipes and people are bothered by this, we should talk about it if the local authority doesn't want to comment on it. And it's a great bonus that we are supported by the international organizations. But there's a drawback also, because we have no business support. We don't have the advertising companies. Well, it's a separate topic. We're working on it. And another thing, I agree that social media are now prevailing, but we are trying to benefit from it, because during coronavirus, during the lockdown, where people don't have the possibility to see each other, to see some events with their own eyes, they go to social media. And that's when the state Facebook pages are developing very well. It's the Donetsk and Luhansk, the state administration, and you can produce nice content there, and the communication with the state institutions goes well if something is necessary. So we went back after a big pause. We actually we were counting on the social media to communicate with our audience, to know what the residents of Donetsk and Luhansk need. And we were successful. When we launched, we had 2,000, but now 25,000 of subscribers. And for the regional media, it's a big step. And I'm not even speaking about the quantity, but about quality, because one of the directions of the Vostochnyi variant is the communication with the occupied territory. So we did not just take the model of a Russian-speaking outlet of Facebook in the social media, and we are criticized for this, but we want to be heard everywhere. Are you criticized in Donetsk? No, some subscribers are criticizing us, and from Donetsk as well, and publicly in comments. Yes, hate in social media is something very, very regular. But the thing I want to communicate to you right now, that for these 2 years we have become the kind of bridge between the occupied territory and the temporarily occupied territory and the free one. But I was born in Horlivka and studied in Donetsk. Actually, we studied at the same university, but I'm a bit younger. Yes. You studied political science. I studied history. So people from the temporarily occupied territories go to us. If for the first year it wasn't so obvious, but now they're asking for the contacts of the human rights defenders, or they're asking how can we join the program of Security Service of Ukraine. You're waited at home. Even though coronavirus has caused some problems for us, but it also has created new opportunities, and the new media outlet did emerge. And I agree that the free radio is really cool, and Ostrov is developing very well, and Dom that has appeared, we are watching it, observing it. A lot of interesting information you can get there. So the region is developing, and we shall try to make it go even better. I'm sure we will talk about this here, and we'll make a better, clearer model of media development that can be borrowed by other media outlets. Thank you, Oleksandra. Now let's listen to the representative of the state body, Donetsk Oblast Administration. When you say it like this, I feel a bit confused or like embarrassed. Okay, but that I'm very pleased, and I always want to say that we work on Channel 5, and that's Radio Svoboda, of freedom. But I'm very pleased that the identification goes as a journalist. I always promised myself that I will be on the side of the journalists. And what you just commented, Sasha, when you said, and you noticed that state institutions started, at least when speaking about media communicating, you cannot be heard. You're not heard without a microphone. So they started working.
We always say that we no longer have the need to file requests as such. As far as I remember, 1 week ago we got a request from 112 TV channel. That's true. But they are sanctioned, they are banned. Well, that's exactly why we got this letter. But we would like to work with starting where do you need the information and in which format. A lot has changed, and it's a pleasure to me that we are part of this change. I agree with you, Oleksandra, that those crises, they have opened new opportunities to us, especially in the public administration. At least I mean my Donetsk regional state administration, where I work in the press service. We try to work online as much as possible. We understand that we do not need processed information. The media needs to have raw information because we understand that our region is very big, and of course it's impossible for everyone to take part in different press conferences, meetings. Of course, we do lack face-to-face communication. Yesterday we saw each other face-to-face, and we were so happy to see our colleagues and friends. So the positive thing is that the state administration becomes more open and transparent. What's bad about that? I understand how much we lack money in the media. I still haven't found an acceptable model to support those media, to support you, to support us, to support the media in Ukraine. Of course, we have a budget. We always organize tenders with project to support to support the media. However, we mostly work with the same media outlets. However, we would like to have the opportunity to work as international organizations just to allocate money for a particular topic. We would like to have a comprehensive program of grants. We undertook these functions, which is not very typical to us. We opened journalist workshop named by Yurko Matushchak. You know him very well. He died in Ilovaisk. Yes, he also graduated from the historical department. We started on the same faculty. So I do invite you as a lecturer, as a speaker to this school. So I think that this media literacy school is very important. We targeted it to students, to high school students, and it turned out that all journalists need it as well, because we have the opportunity, we have the need to speak. Our media landscape is constantly changing. Well, maybe what I wanted to say that we are losing the profoundness of this information. It's like a clip culture that we experience right now. When we started making video on behalf of the state administration, we wanted to make short videos up to 3 minutes. And now we make these videos 1 minute maximum, because even 1 minute videos are too long for our audience. And of course, it's not always about the quality of the topics. However, I do enjoy my job when, for example, Yulia, my colleague, visited us, and we wanted to discuss the topic of mines. So Abibok Yulia, a PhD student, a researcher. No, she's a journalist from Ostriv media outlet, and she wanted to talk about the mines. It was very difficult. However, Yulia was so experienced, and that is why it was a pleasure for me to answer her questions. And we were so happy to cooperate with her. So it seems that she was genuinely interested in this topic. She just didn't want to hype on that. And that's really what we want to see. Unfortunately, we don't see such attitude very often. Thank you. Speaking of the media landscape, we are seeing two parallel processes. So first, while we are holding this media forum, a lot of media outlets has died, if so to say. There are a lot of other media with huge potential, with huge audiences. They couldn't survive themselves after the state administration lost the control over the media. It wasn't interesting to them to support the media. On the other hand, there are new media. There are a couple of very successful projects, not really projects, but media outlets. And I wish that these media outlets last long. We see that the role of social media has increased. I can tell Anya she says that these media are not profound or they do not publish verified information. But in my opinion, why media doesn't want to go into social media? Probably that's the old school of the media when they need some kind of website or a printed newspaper or magazine. However, it seems to me that for real journalists who can write and who commit to journalistic standards, they can go into social media to convey information. There are also different messengers, and it's kind of a parallel reality that we don't often see. All this story with the anti-vax movement showed that all those jokes about chats of neighbors or chats of parents, it's a powerful weapon in this hybrid war. We have carried out a research of this media. However, now we must confess that we don't always understand what is happening there. And last but not least, which is typical for the Donetsk Oblast, that independent media outlets on the territory of Donetsk Oblast and on the territory of Ukraine can exist only using grant money, because we don't have an advertising market. The market that we have now is only emerging, and it has decreased within the past few years. So very often the media outlets have to compete with the media owned by oligarchs. And of course, when an oligarch can spend a lot of money just to run its media, to distribute it for free from door to door, of course, no commercial media can survive. And inhabitants of our cities, of our regions, are used to the fact that the media must be free. That is why they believe what is written in those free media. As for the landscape, it seems to me that there's no landscape as such. There are a couple of islands that try to fight for the freedom of speech, for the freedom of journalists, and the rest, these are channels in Telegram, in Viber, city groups, anonymous channels, different accounts that spread some kind of bullshit and disinformation. Yesterday we had a great panel discussion about the media draft law. Let me quote Alexei Pogorelov, who said that we need to change, we need to develop, and former editorials offices that we are used to, they will change. It will change. Thank you. An interesting thought. Okay, and now let's talk about the neighboring region, which is also part of the macro region within our forum, the east of Ukraine. Kharkiv Oblast. This is also neighboring oblast to us. This is very important for Donbas Media Forum. Now, during the pandemic, we are holding this event online. However, we have a lot of experience working in Kharkiv, and Nakipilo media outlet was our general partner during all those years. So as for the Kharkiv Oblast, do you see those trends that we are discussing right now in Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast? Are these trends similar or different? What would you say? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As for the media landscape in Kharkiv and Kharkiv Oblast, I would agree that everything is more or less similar. Independent media are trying to survive. As for Nakipilo, then I think we are very lucky, because before the situation of the pandemic, we received institutional support for 2 years, and it helped us survive. Institutional support, you mean? Yes, that's true. But it was minimal support. That wasn't much. We have a convergent media, we have a press center, we have a website, a YouTube channel, and we are also present in social media. to support our press center. When the pandemic started, we faced this problem that, for example, we couldn't invite people to, so they don't run the risk of getting infected. However, we needed to discuss, we needed to verify information provided to us, to verify those fake news which spread all around Kharkiv and Kharkiv Oblast. So what we did, and not only us, media from the Kharkiv region started finding ways not to let all the social media and telegram channels to get all the information. We always verify this information, we analyze them, so we do not repeat the situation which was typical to us at the beginning of the pandemic. Speaking of challenges, then I would like to say that Kharkiv is now going through one more challenge. So we had elections of the mayor of Kharkiv, and it was also like a litmus paper, because these elections were the worst. I don't know, for many years. I mean, judging the technologies used. So what about fake news? What about prefabricated news? Will all the media publish press releases about Mikhailo Dobkin, who promises to do a lot of good things, or Mr. Terehov met teachers to discuss the hidden season? By the way, it's a real video which was published, which was shown on Kharkiv TV channels. So it was like a quality check where the Kharkiv media committed to the standards. And of course, it turned out that not all of them meet those requirements, those standards. If we compare a situation during the past few years, I see that the media changes. The media becomes more professional in conveying information. In 2014 and 2015 in Kharkiv, I think the situation is similar in your oblast. New media outlets appeared. It was the period of flourishing of the civil society journalism, when journalists and activists were working together. And now I can see that every year we adopt new approaches. We changed our editorial policy, our editorial values, the way we convey information, the way we talk to our audience. Not all those media who appeared on the local scene in 2014-2015 survived. Some of them were left as public channels in social media. Some of them
they were also focusing on the local elections, but they also were needed by our region to bring in something fresh, because traditional media didn't give that volume of information. They were not as fast as the new media. Another change that took place, and I think it was in 2019-2020, that's the cultural media emergence. In Kharkiv, for example, it's the journal Look and the creative outlet Vara. So these are the startups. They are niche and regional, but there is a need in them, and I see how actively they develop. That is why, answering your question, it's a step to professionalism, which has been taken for this time, because challenges that make us stronger, and then they make us look for other ways, channels of information dissemination. Thank you, colleagues. So we move well. And if you hear these signs, that's when we get questions from our audience. So our audience is very active online as well. We have people also in the room who registered and they can join to our discussion asking questions. But there are also questions from our online audience. So let's give them the feeling of their presence here, and so they don't have to wait for offline meetings. So the question: why on the local level more budget funds is spent to support PR of the local authorities and advertising their achievements rather than supporting independent journalists? So you mentioned this, you commented on this, Tanya. Maybe you can answer this. Can you explain? See, this is a very frank question. I would probably argue advertising the local authority. Well, I will speak on my direction from that. I will speak about the direction I'm responsible for. I don't think. No, we are trying to build the work of our press service in such a way to give the refined information, like what, who, for how much, what for. We do not have, or thanks to the attention dedicated by the deputy head or the head, we give the journalist the tool, and this tool as information. And we are going to the social media, and we are working in the live mode. So our briefings, press conferences, they are always streamed. We ask questions the journalists right away. So you are saying these are the state communications, right? Public communications. You see, our we can, for example, divide it into 3 lots: internet media, printed press, and television. That's all. Who wins? He wins. They win. Which amounts we are talking about? Okay, so for this year, to support TV channels, 600,000 was allocated. But during the, I think that 50,000 was won by TV7, then Donbass came. You see, the system Prozoro, you have to learn to work with it also for the media specialists, because it is important who submits first and which steps they take, and the media representatives, they also have to do this, because roughly speaking, it's not that we allocate it especially for someone. Okay, we will encourage such ad, so the colleagues would submit their applications, because you said TV7 now is communal and Donbass is a private, and they all have the possibilities, right? The equal opportunities. I wanted to add the question of communication of the authorities and independent media and money is a difficult question, because on the example of Mariupol, the authority is PR'd not by the independent media but by local municipal channels and the channels of Akhmetov, because it's an example of, it's a monopoly, information monopoly. They don't need to give money to somebody else to have their PR campaign, because they are funds is enough. But another thing is, do we need this money at all? And no, we don't. And we any suggestions that we get, we are very careful with it. No, I mean on the local level. So what the city council is offering you or can offer you. Yes, because they used to ask for placement, but we are very careful with this, because this is the tool of influence. Because it does, I don't know how it happens on the oblast level, because we never accepted such suggestions, but on the local level, it's always the tool of influence on media, and we're very careful about this. So we prefer to make money in other ways. And that's what I wanted to say, because in Kharkiv it's a risky. It's something that can can doubt in our independence, or because our platform, our press center is open for almost all politicians, but support from the oblast administration or local authority, if we receive it, then it seems to me to some extent we would lose trust of our readers, because highlighting activity of the oblast administration and city administration, we are doing it because we are journalists, especially now in the time of pandemic, and we need to be always informed. But those media who received support from to highlight the activity of separate, how is it formulated, the mayor or the people's deputy, it's highlighting is specific and you can feel it. And even the media that name themselves independent, it's obvious they discredit themselves with such materials. And it's obvious that it reduces the trust by the community. So if we speak about the local elections, this was especially obvious when the Kharkiv Vesti, their all news bulletin, was dedicated to the Terehov. Kharkiv Zvesti. He met this guy, he opened the kindergarten there. So, and they are financed from the city budget, right? Yes. And to stop the influence on the editorial policy of the city authorities, there are no such tools, right? Is it the choice of the editor? Yes, this is the choice of the editor. It's I'm speaking about a different thing here. When you said that it can be separate grants to highlight the topic of decentralization or the topic of vaccination, that's a different thing. But now you cannot order order ad of vaccination, right? Now we are implementing the project dedicated to decentralization achievements. But it's not about hooray, hooray, everything is great. But we go in Kharkiv Oblast and make small videos, text reports about problems, about successes, achievements. So cases in the format of constructive journalism, but it's not a grant of the city council or oblast administration. When there is just a separate topic where there is no space for manipulation, when we don't have to take a comment from the official. Okay, 20 minutes still until the end of this panel discussion. Yes, I think this was the question of the city media. And the best thing that is in the draft law on media, that's a murder of the law about highlighting activity of the authorities, which enables to conclude agreements on highlighting activity. But this happened in the framework of privatization, no? But this law has always been, and many manipulate this, because I think it's an absurd story when some media, all media are to cover of the wide spectrum, they all cover activity of local authorities, but some of them do it for their readers and others do it for money from the budget for the authority. And there are a few problems that, as Parfenov says, the authority turns into an expensive a dead person about whom you can say either everything or nothing. And the first problem that the authorities stops being alive. They stop getting some feedback, criticism, wishes, or reflection of the society. And second thing is that it all undermines trust to press as institute. So if we kill this wonderful, quote marks, law that gives directly possibility to get money for covering some certain activity, then a number of regional newspapers will die. Because I heard it with my own ears how editors of some regional newspapers said, do whatever, but don't touch this law. Because I go to the head of my regional administration and they say, you are to give me money for the next year. And some regional newspapers have it as the single source of financing. But if they die, the media landscape is going to get clearer. Because what they do has nothing to do with the journalism or press. So maybe it's again about self-regulation and, our own regulation, because we all are here journalists. At least in our regions, we will speak about this too, about compliance with the standards. So I encourage all of the editorial offices to acknowledge our decisions, because it's an example of an effective self-regulation where these questions are considered. You may disagree with something, but that's what it is. The problem is, fortunately or unfortunately, we live in the material world, and in Kramatorsk there's a recent case when one man in his material gave negative comments about people with mental disorders, and the Commission on the Journalistic Ethics, they made the decision and they judged them, but his position didn't change. And he said, yes, maybe I am he said that, yes, he is like a bad person, but at least he has money. But I think here the problem is that because of such, judgment, we inform others about those who do these things, but nobody precludes us from thinking about it, and it's more that we are to be oriented on it in our regions. I have a question to Oleksandra. There's a comment. I will read the comment of Lech Jolas, who texted us. He is the former head of the Donetsk radio company, and now he works with the money went to the digital, but not only advertisement is the source of financing. Don't forget about the audience. People even in smaller towns, they're ready to pay for the good quality content and support those media who serve the local communities. So the media is to be bothered about content in capital letters. And the content will enable them financially. So tell me, please, Sasha, how much do you get from crowdfunding? We haven't done it yet, but it's a really good idea and topic, and we are working on it. Yesterday, we have completed training at Lviv Media Forum. They also did a good case program on the membership, saying how the membership program works in media. We are digesting now and think whether we have a capacity in the region to create this kind of a model to engage our audience. We have to, of course, research it a bit more to know what they want to see.
Not only business. Well, that's true. Not only business, not only state money. Now we are working on a new project and we have concrete results when we act as advertisers, when we advertise the audience. We have several cases. For example, we worked with the MOM, International Migration Organization. We prepared useful cases which were related to domestic violence. We are working with the platform of civil initiatives Teplitsa from Slavyansk. Within the past few years, well, they were founded 3 years, it seems to me. So, but they are growing now. They launch new projects, new initiatives, and they need an information partner. We do that for free. If they have a budget, then we can engage in a bigger project. So we give the opportunity to the civil society to develop contacts with the media. We also have an excellent project, Mariupol program, cultural program. They have launched an exciting cultural project which is aimed at the young people. So they reached out to us and said, let's make this project together. And we agreed to right at once. It was a cultural project. We are writing about them. They are telling about how the young people take part in different projects. For example, they highlight different problems that the youth faces, such as, for example, loneliness. You have a lot of success cases. Yes, we do, but we need to develop in that direction. That is why we do respect your case, because you know how to work with advertisers. As far as I understand, working with advertisers is not always easy. For example, there were a lot of regional cases where it was not exactly an advertising. We just want to highlight different business organizations in the east of Ukraine. So it was not purely advertising. It was more like promotion of this important topic. There are small enterprises which are supported by grants. We write about them, about their success stories, and about recommendations they offer. We had a woman who is producing cheeses in Slavyansk, and it was so tasty. This article was so popular that it went viral. After this article, this woman told us that this word of mouth really worked well. A lot of people started commenting on her Facebook page. She didn't pay us any money. Well, she didn't give us any cheese, but I also really liked, and I ordered cheese made by this woman from Slovyansk. It wasn't expensive and she didn't pay to us, but this article was very successful. So it seems to me that supporting small businesses is very efficient. Maybe if a business wants to advertise with us, we can help them. Sometimes we work pro bono, sometimes we can take money if they have any. We just know that there are a lot of trends, a lot of new developments in this area. Within the past 2 years, we have been learning studying our audience, analyzing whether they are ready to buy content. However, we must confess that our audience, especially in the regions, they cannot buy content because this region is quite poor, and plus there is the war. So people are not ready to pay for what they usually get for free. But we need to change that. We need to change that gradually, step by step. Last year, we wanted to work on it with trainers from Ukrainska Pravda. They explained us, they taught us several models of paid content. So we had a successful case of attracting money from the audience, where we studied the quality of fish, of river fish and sea fish. We wanted to research how bad ecology, bad environmental behaviors impact the quality of the local fish. But it necessitated money. We have launched our idea on a website, and we started collecting money to carry out this research on this particular topic, to study the quality of the local rivers, of the local fish, and we paid the journalist who worked on this topic. So I'm really grateful to Tetiana, who took an active part in it. So that's your personal issues, you can discuss that later. We had 1 month to collect this money. However, we collected this money only in 10 days. So I think it was a success story. It gives us hope that we'll be able to develop in that area. However, I'd like to say that crowdfunding, not targeted crowdfunding, but just crowdfunding to support our website is much more difficult. We know that there are also websites from the City Sites Network try to do that, and it wasn't efficient at all. It's not a sustainable approach. It's not this funding is not sustainable. Today you can get 1,000 hryvnias and tomorrow you get nothing. This is not a sustainable approach right now. I donate money to your website and automatically there are allocations from my card every month, and I only remember about that when I get a notification. That is why this system works quite well. I would recommend you to do that. I'd like to say that the support that we have is on one hand quite limited. If we want to develop, we need to make more money. And this year we had another challenge. Our landlord decided to stop the contract with us, and we had to relocate. It was very difficult to find a new office. That is why we spent a lot of money to relocate, to equip our newsroom. It costed us more than 100,000 hryvnias. We thought, oh, that wouldn't cost that much to create a new newsroom, but it turned out that it was a huge amount of money and we didn't know where to take it from. So for the past 2 years and even before that, we have launched our commercial department. We are doing video production. We don't work with the authorities, but for example, we have carried out a couple of projects with the Consulate of Germany. So if you have any ideas how to implement what you want, you can suggest that to other stakeholders. It works. When we're doing something together jointly, it always has some kind of interest from the audience because they understand that you are not alone, that this is a joint effort. That is why it seems to me that our panel discussion is very important in this area. We have 10 minutes left and then we will continue speaking of such coordination. However, let us give the opportunity to those people who came here on this Saturday morning to listen to us, to ask their questions, or probably we have questions from our audience, those people who are present here. So please take your mic and speak up. Thank you so much. My name is Abdujalil. I'm a journalist at BBC News. It was interesting to me to get to know about the impact of the war in the east of Ukraine on the media, on the regional media in your regions. However, I didn't hear much about that. So can you please elaborate on that? I know that we don't have much time left. However, can you please elaborate on that impact? And how do you compare it with what happened in 2014 or 2015? So the question is, how the military actions impact your work, your audience, your daily activities in general? Nakipilo was founded in 2014 as a response to the so-called Russian Spring, which unfortunately came to Kharkiv. Since then, we have been working, and of course, the topic related to the war in the east of Ukraine is always reflected in our articles, in our videos. Our journalists go to the front line. And of course, we always treat those topics which are related to the military actions. And we also highlight topics which are related to to the situation with that's with adaptation of the military veterans. We are telling about the rehabilitation, about the psychological situation of those veterans. I would like to say that within our project with Institute of Mass Information, we have carried out a research about how military topic is reflected in Kharkiv. It turned out that not all the media are providing their statistics of losses in the east of Ukraine, and let me be honest, a lot of people say that they are tired of this topic. However, we definitely write and we made videos on this topic. Maybe that would sound strange or even cynical, but it seems to me that for local media, the war was, if I may say, it was some kind of a nudge, a push forward, because local media became interesting to the capital. It turned out that people working here, they know all the details, all the hints, all the hues of the media landscape. That is why this is one of, positive influences on the local media. There is an increase in interest, but I must say that there are still a lot of expectations. Negative news, of course, are used by the audience, are consumed by the audience uh, much better. So the audience is ready to listen to something negative, to something bad, and we try to shift their focus to say that despite the war, despite the pandemic, something positive is there, that the infrastructure is development, local business is developing. We try to balance the negative and the positive, and we try to balance the interest of our audience. The website 069, where I work, is an old media. It was founded in 2006. In 2014, we faced the challenge which we hadn't known before. We didn't know how to work with this topic. We didn't know. We didn't have the relevant experience. We didn't know how to fight disinformation. It was a huge challenge to us. We didn't know whether we needed to talk to our Russian colleagues who attacked us in 2014 using our information to fabricate fake news based on what we published on our websites. And they used this information. We also commented to the Russian media. Back then, we didn't know that we just needed to cut our ties with the Russian media. So we needed to learn from scratch to work in this new media environment. In addition to something positive, there were a lot of downsides because we lost a part of our audience. The audience was split apart along the contact line, those who were for Ukraine and those who were for Russia. It was a huge loss to us, and we still try to rectify what has happened. Do we still have time? Can I please tell you about something important for our media and for the media that work in Donbass? The military topic is the most important. Since 2014 up until now, we have learned to work with the primary sources. We decided to work with the general headquarters of the Joint Forces operation. This is very important. This is a huge responsibility. We closely follow the developments, and just as Tetiana said, we are showing different aspects, military aspects and life of the veterans after they come back home from the front line. We are writing about rehabilitation, about the new opportunities which they create in this society, about new communities which are created. So this topic is very important to Donbass. It has always been, it will always be. We will continue analyzing it. Donbass is Ukraine. The question is really important, and we can talk about this topic many days in a row because the impact has been colossal. Without the war, we probably wouldn't have our Donbass Media Forum. We wouldn't have this discussion. But unfortunately, we have what we have. The war is still raging in the east of Ukraine. Part of our territory is still occupied, and we do our best to fight our opponents. So, dear colleagues, it's 11. Let's sum up our discussion.
Let's sum up the results of our discussion, and I will give each of you a minute or less to sum up. And in my opinion, as for today's discussion, we have spoken about achievements that we have in the East. These are new media, new formats of these media, a relaunch of your project, and a radio from Bakhmut, the channel Dom, which is one of the projects which started broadcasting on the occupied territory more than a year ago. So some process is happening on shaping the media landscape. But there are those processes which have negative signs. It's the negative impact of aggressive rhetorics in social media. That's production for the clip content. It's the HR questions, because as you know, the Department of Journalism in Mariupol, only one left, and the Donetsk National Institute moved to Vinnytsia. So these staff matters, they are in place, and those people who go to work in media, they leave then after working here with us. They go to other regions because nobody wants to live in such constant stress all the time. The budgets, that is the advertising market that has decreased. In the process of privatization, we have pluses and minuses, and we don't know what it's going to be like in the long-term perspective. As for the broadcasting on the non-controlled territories, channel Dom, I personally did a lot for this work, but we will not mention this today because I cooperate with the Dom channel, and it seems to me that we are to speak about it, but not in this panel discussion. But here we are to speak about the needs we heard from our community. So I have listed them now, and each of you present here will sum up too. I have listened to you very attentively and listened to the audience that was listening to us. So I suggest all of those present, everyone who has ever visited the Donbass Media Forum, all the new participants, all the media representatives in Oblast of the East who are not part of our Donbass Media Forum, for us to start new common actions on restoration of media environment of our region, to unite around restoration of trust to media and overcoming the existential threat to our existence as media representatives. Because before this panel discussion, we said, what is it going to look like? What are we talking about? And I was thinking about what you said, Anna. It means that this is existential question of, because tomorrow they will tell us new social media emerged. The day after tomorrow, the video will be not for a minute but for half a minute. So where is the role of the classical media there? And a lot has been said yesterday about this. I understand, and we heard about it, that a lot help in the process of, and those are donor organizations. And it's important to name these organizations, that they have been supporting the activity of media for so many years. So Nakipilo, Vash Variant, and 06, and USAID, and the Intern Youth, New Project DJ East, and the media program of the Embassy of the USA to Ukraine. Also, European Commission that is doing a lot. It's also a symbol of support Anya is adding also the Polish Fund of Solidarity. This is important. I always have some ideas about not controlled territory, because we usually speak about the controlled territory. I always have some ideas of how to expand presence of Ukraine in Luhansk and Donetsk and Crimea, of Ukraine in the meaning of the existential dimension, not just authority, not just government, but our state. And I want to start working on this as well after the completion of our Donbas Media Forum, because the situation, in my opinion, because we gather, analyze, make audits, I think we can't postpone this process. You just can't, You are making projects, programs, and we just can't wait not to make media projects on the non-controlled territory. It is really important. DOM is doing, but it seems to me today there might be the point of no return on account of non-controlled territories. For it not to happen, it's important to focus 100% of efforts on Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea. That is in my personal professional plans as editor, journalist, and media personality. So as for Dom, by the way, I am confident that during this year they have obtained a powerful team this year and opportunities, and they will be able to organize broadcast even without my personal participation in the most of cases. But as for our colleagues' participation and our panel here, this can be a start for Donbas Media Forum, not to be annually, but for it to be all the time, so that we could have trainings every day on subscription, to arrange meetings, maybe not this large, but a few people together. So this is going, so for it to be a constant everyday's work. So thank you for visiting this panel today, because for me it is becoming the dimension of what is really important for us. What is really important, so that Ukraine is even present in the non-controlled territory of Ukraine, and us as media representatives, we can do this. These are my personal reflection on account of this at this panel, and I suggest that you have more than 1 minute to express your opinion. It's important, that during this Donbas Media Forum, we can generate ideas. This has been the foundation of this the forum, and this has been always the idea of the organizing committee. I shall start. I completely agree with you, because indeed in the regions, media community is not so connected. We don't communicate that much. Now we have 4 different editorials that have met, and we noticed that we have some common questions, common ideas, and when we can gather together and solve some issues, we can find some new cases. We can take your experience, you can take our experience, we can find new solutions. And I completely agree with you, because we need to be together, we need to communicate, to stick together, because we are curious to know about your experience of communication, with the real people from the non-controlled territories. That's why we are promoting this decision. And so you can also check on the website some useful cases for the residents who, for example, who don't even know how to cross the checkpoint to have a jab. Even this, it is very important. Materials have to be useful, and media community has to keep in touch all the time. This is a really cool idea. I support it. If to speak about the conclusions and about what we are going to do next, we're going to work on grant programs for media. And my motivation was, when I came here, I want it very much for the journalists not to be afraid to speak about the state officials or state management well. but for the state management and officials to give many reasons to do this. So it has to be like a two-side movement, because we have to understand presidents come and go, officials also here they come and go too. We ought to have the state of Ukraine and trust in state institutions. Another 2014, when we were told that there's no more state and these institutions were paralyzed, we might not survive it. So you see, when we are confronting and think whether we shall work with the state or not, we can lose the country. A big responsibility, to the state for it to meet these requirements, so people who didn't, refuse to speak well about it. Okay, so first thing, I agree. Indeed, if it is a cooperation between editorial offices, and we have such experience with the Donetsk Institute for Information, we create content, the topics are selected by the editorial offices themselves, they approve them, and then these stories or texts are published. And it's not only about the Eastern Oblast. Second, it's increasing media literacy. I completely agree about lack of human resources. It is a problem, and right now it seems to me that there are many programs which are aimed at increasing this media literacy and the professionalism of the media representatives, including Nakipilo is with the Deutsche Welle Academy. They are holding a number of trainings on constructive journalism, and you have the School of Universal Editors. And before this, we have conducted, I'm a civil journalist, also training, but now there is no need anymore in this. So this is point 2. And point 3 is some maybe fighting with burning out of journalists, because it's a big problem, and it's about communication and around what we can unite. And we have spoken about constructive journalism today in Kharkiv. I hope, if everything goes well, on the 3rd and 4th of December, we are holding the Forum of Constructive Journalism. I'm inviting all. We have opened the registration. It's also a chance to see each other, to communicate, and to produce how to have a quality influence and overcome obstacles. It seems to be an important thought is about a constant dialogue, because it's no secret when we prepared all of the panels as the representative of the organizing committee, I always wanted to include also some drama or conflict in it, but yesterday during all day it was interesting to observe that there was no conflict. There is no conflict, because from panel to panel during the dialogues it turned out, when even if those were some enemies that couldn't make peace with each other, but they were speaking about the same things, they just needed to talk to each other. And I liked it a lot that we are capable of uniting around values, because values is the most important thing that exists in our lives, because without it there is no point in doing anything. And to go in Donetsk without values but just with the Ukrainian flag is not a good solution. Yes, democracy is our main value. I also support the idea of a constant communication, because we feel lack of professional communication, and Donbas Media Forum has always been for us this platform where we could meet with our colleagues and exchange our problems. So I think it's a really cool idea, and we support it, and we shall continue supporting it with all means. So I would like to speak about problems. I see a big challenge not only we feel not only lack of professional stuff, we feel lack of value with valuable journalists who share values.
Who share by democratic values. We do feel that. And I think that this is a problem. This is a general problem because it is impossible to be a journalist and to be indifferent. Because indifference, this is what leads to what Tetiana has said and Alexei has mentioned. It leads to this clip culture. If there is this indifference, there are no normal news. I think this is a general problem that we need to tackle by joining our forces. Last but not least, I would like to say that I also part of the committee of journalist ethics. I joined it last year, and I think that there are very few journalists working at this commission. I mean, because joining local media is to increase the impact of this organization. This is very important to tackle the issues that Andriy has told us about. When a person receives some kind of request from the commission, a complaint from the commission, but doesn't react, because for them this commission is not an authority, and it will become an authority when it will become very influential all over Ukraine and not only in Kiev and Kiev Oblast. Thank you so much for these important insights, dear colleagues. That was very important to hear. We have one more day to discuss all these issues here today, to start creating commissions, committees, and a lot of things like that. I cannot take your time. For the next panelist, I see that there is Lisa from the Commission of Journalist Ethics, and I would like to invite all of you here today. Thank you for organizing this excellent event, for supporting us, partners, donor organizations, and to our Donetsk Institute of Information, the organizing committee of Donbass Media Forum, for organizing this excellent event. So we have the opportunity for this dialogue. Thank you.